What you're about to hear is one of the most chilling mysteries in American history. A case so baffling, so taunting, that it has haunted investigators, cryptographers, and true crime lovers for more than 5 decades. A killer who didn't just murder. He communicated. He bragged. He played games. And then he vanished. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer. Part 1. The Emergence of a Shadow. It all began on the night of December 20th, 1968. In a quiet rural area near Vallejo, California, a teenage couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were parked along a remote lover's lane. What should have been a peaceful moment turned into horror. Both were found shot to death. David was shot once in the head. Betty Lou had tried to flee, but was shot 5 times in the back. There were no witnesses, no fingerprints, just shell casings. The police had no suspect. The town mourned, but life moved on, until it happened again. On July 4th, 1969, another young couple, Darlene Farron and Mike Mageau, were sitting in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park, not far from the first murder site. A man approached the vehicle and fired multiple rounds. Darlene died. Mike survived barely. He described the attacker as a heavy-set white male, around 5 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. It was a brutal act, but what happened next turned it from a murder into something else entirely. Just 40 minutes after the attack, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call. A calm male voice confessed to both attacks and provided details only the killer would know. The police traced the call to a payphone near the police station. Then came the letters. On August 1st, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters were sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. Each was written in a disturbing, almost mocking tone. They claimed responsibility for the killings and included details that had never been made public. But more disturbingly, each envelope contained 1/3 of a cryptogram, a cipher. The killer demanded that all 3 newspapers publish his cryptogram on the front page, or he would go on a killing spree. He signed the letters with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it, like a gun's crosshairs. It would soon become infamous. The cryptogram was a challenge, a puzzle. The killer was playing a game, one where the stakes were life and death. Part 2. The Zodiac's Deadly Game. The cryptograms were solved quickly by a high school teacher and his wife. They decoded the message to reveal a chilling philosophy. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. There was no name, no real clues to identity, just a terrifying insight into a twisted mind. Over the next year, the Zodiac struck again. On September 27th, 1969, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking at Lake Berryessa. A man approached them wearing a bizarre hooded costume with the crosshair symbol on his chest. He tied them up and stabbed them repeatedly. Brian survived. Cecilia did not. The killer even called the police to report the crime himself, once again, showing no fear. Just 2 weeks later, cab driver Paul Stein was shot in the head in San Francisco's Presidio Heights neighborhood. Witnesses saw a man wipe the cab down and walk away casually. Police missed him by minutes. A piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt arrived in the mail at the San Francisco Chronicle days later. The killer was toying with the police. He called himself a Zodiac for the first time in a letter dated August 7th, 1969. He taunted police, threatened school children, and even claimed he'd planted bombs, though no bombs were ever found. In total, the Zodiac claimed to have killed 37 people. Officially, 5 murders have been conclusively linked to him. 2 other victims survived his attacks. Part 3. Suspects and Theories. Over the decades, hundreds of suspects were investigated. The most infamous was Arthur Lee Allen. He was a convicted child molester, lived near the crime scenes, and had a disturbing history. He even owned a Zodiac brand watch, which bore the same crosshair symbol. But despite the circumstantial evidence, Allen's fingerprints, handwriting, and DNA did not match those found on Zodiac letters. He died in 1992, and the case remained open. Other suspects have included Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and even Charles Manson, though both were quickly ruled out. In recent years, a group calling themselves the Case Breakers claimed to have identified the Zodiac as Gary Francis Post, a deceased Air Force veteran. They pointed to photo evidence, facial scars, and coded messages. However, law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, stated that the case remained open and that the evidence presented by the group was inconclusive. The Zodiac's identity continues to be a source of obsession, leading to countless books, documentaries, and amateur investigations. Online forums dissect every word he wrote. Podcasts, like this one, explore every possibility. But no one, not the police, not cryptographers, not the world's best minds, has definitively solved the mystery. Part 4. Modern Breakthroughs and Lingering Shadows. Decades have passed. Most true crime stories fade with time. New headlines replace old horrors. But not the Zodiac. His story keeps pulling us back, deeper and deeper, because we still don't know who he was. And something in that silence is louder than confession. In recent years, hope for closure has returned, thanks to modern forensics. With advancements in DNA analysis, especially the use of genetic genealogy, cases once thought unsolvable are now being cracked wide open. In 2018, the Golden State Killer was identified after 40 years of mystery using public DNA databases. That success inspired fresh efforts to solve the Zodiac case. Investigators began retesting envelopes and stamps from his letters, hoping they still held fragments of saliva or skin cells. The hope was simple. If even a small trace of the killer's DNA could be extracted, it could be matched against millions of profiles. Family trees, distant relatives, anyone. While there were whispers that partial DNA was found, and even rumors of behind-the-scenes breakthroughs, no official match has been confirmed. The FBI and local law enforcement remain quiet. Is it to avoid tipping off someone who's still alive? Or is the trail colder than ever? One of the biggest moments came in December 2020, when a group of amateur code breakers cracked the infamous 340-character cipher, known as the Z340. For over 50 years, it had resisted all efforts. The decrypted message didn't reveal his identity, but it did give chilling insight into his mindset. I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Even after all these years, his voice, cold, arrogant, mocking, still echoes. So why is this case so deeply haunting? Because the Zodiac wasn't just a killer, he was a storyteller. He created a mythology with ciphers and costumes and codes. He turned murder into a game, and we've all been playing it ever since. Part 5. Legacy of the Unknown. He targeted random victims. Lovers in parked cars, a cab driver, students. There was no consistent pattern, no clear motive. That randomness shattered people's sense of safety. It made everyone a potential target. His messages were carefully crafted to provoke fear. He threatened to shoot children on school buses. He taunted police. He demanded his coded messages be published or more people would die. It wasn't just about killing. It was about attention, control, and in that sense, the Zodiac wasn't just a criminal. He was a manipulator of the public psyche. Even now, he's a cultural icon, referenced in music, films, books, and endless YouTube rabbit holes. The 2007 movie Zodiac, directed by David Fincher, reignited global interest. True crime podcasts dissect his letters. Reddit threads with thousands of comments analyze blurry photographs and handwriting samples. Some people have dedicated their lives to this case. Retired detectives who still keep boxes of files in their garages. Journalists who spend decades chasing new leads. Cryptographers who fall asleep thinking about ciphers that remain unsolved. And then there's the question we can't avoid. Is the Zodiac still alive? If he was in his late 20s or 30s in 1969, he'd be in his 80s or even 90s today. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he died decades ago. Maybe he's watching documentaries about himself. Maybe he smiles every time he sees a new theory pop up online. That's the haunting part. He could be anyone, or no one. Some believe the Zodiac case will never be solved, that too much time has passed, too much evidence is gone, and too many trails have gone cold. But others believe in the power of time and technology. DNA tools are advancing. AI-driven voice analysis, pattern recognition, and deep data searches are opening doors we never imagined. And someone, somewhere, might one day crack the final piece of the puzzle. Until then, the mystery remains. And perhaps that's what keeps the story alive. Not just a horror of what the Zodiac did, but the terrifying idea that he got away with it. That he may have lived a normal life, had a job, a family, neighbors, that he walked among us, and no one knew. And so the question lingers. Was the Zodiac a lone madman? A twisted genius? Or something even darker? The embodiment of how evil can hide behind an ordinary face? Maybe we'll never know. Maybe that's the point. But as long as questions remain, as long as a single cipher remains unsolved, as long as a shadow still stretches across the dark corners of our curiosity, the Zodiac will never truly disappear. His final message was never signed. No goodbye. No surrender. Just silence. And sometimes silence is the loudest scream of all.